Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to try to take a very hot topic that's going on right now, ChatGPT, OpenAI, and artificial intelligence, and I'm going to try to bring it to PowerShell and scripting. And we're going to do something that will hopefully be educational beyond just the end goal. Anyone who knows me knows that my entire reason for everything that I do is all about education. It's all about the journey you take to get to where you want to go will teach you more than actually getting there. It will give you a bigger benefit for you, having learned the lessons you do across the journey beyond the value you get from just getting to the end. So I'm hoping that through this journey on this video, there are things that you learn by watching it that will help you in day-to-day life in IT or whatever it is that you do, even data analytics. So I'm going to share my screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a ChatGPT clone out of PowerShell. Here's my PowerShell window. Here's VS Code that we're going to use. And we're going to first talk about how is it exactly that ChatGPT works. And the way this happens is through an API. API is how every web service communicates in some way, shape, or form. They're not all exactly the same, but for the most part, these days, most modern applications use a REST API to communicate. And all that means is that most of the time, the data that it's talking to is transmitted when you send something and you receive something. Most of the time, it's transmitted in JSON format. Sometimes it's in form URL encoded format. We're not going to get into the differences too much. Right now, for our purposes, we should know that ChatGPT's API communicates over JSON format. And so therefore, every time we do something with them, it'll be with JSON. Now, what that looks like exactly is basically just a web request. So just like I can go here and go to google.com, I can also, on my PowerShell, I can say invoke REST method or web request, either one of those, and I can do URI, and then HTTPS, I can type google.com, and it'll give me back a Google page. Now, I may not be able to read it because this is the backend shell. Here's the content that's going to be everything. But this is a web request that gets made, just like in a browser, you make a web request. So too in PowerShell, you can make web requests as well. And that is basically the gist of how we're going to communicate over an API. In this case, because we're doing everything in REST, REST API with JSON format, we're going to be using invoke REST method. A lot of people don't like doing that. Some people prefer building a .NET object for a web class with a web class to make their connections, and other people prefer doing the invoke web request. It really depends what you want to do and what it is you're trying to do it with. In our case, invoke REST method works more or less every time. So if we were to go to ChatGPT, OpenAI's documentation page, let me see if I can actually pull that up real quick. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Not logged in on here, but oh, okay, that just worked. So if I pull this up on the screen, here's OpenAI's dashboard or doc platform when you're logged in. And what we want to do is we want to go, actually it's up here, documentation. And we want to see what we're going to be doing is chat completion. There are a lot of other API endpoints we can hit. For right now, we're going to focus on chat completion. And the goal is to build a ChatGPT using GPT 3.5-Turbo chat equivalent inside of PowerShell. And it gives you some introductions, and it tells you like you can use Python import OpenAI, and then you can just communicate with Python. We're gonna do this without any modules, specifically for the purpose of learning our way through it. Okay, so what we want to do, first of all, let me bring that back. Actually, what we want to do is we have to understand the endpoint we need to hit. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out, number one, how we authenticate. So let's see, authentication. That's not where we want to go. Let's go to quick start and start with an introduction. Let's see if we can find our endpoints. Almost everything here is using modules, so it's not really helpful. We're looking for something that'll help us and tell us where to connect to. Let's look at, no, that's not helpful. We don't want that. Libraries, Python library, Node.js community library. They don't have, well, here we have some information. We know when we're building our query, we need our model, we need our prompt, temperature, max tokens, we need our API key. But we don't have structuring chat models. Wonder if they have a, this is going really well, guys. Oh, duh, I'm in the wrong area, I think. Let's look at API reference and go from there. Here we go, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, I was in the wrong area. It took me a second. If the video doesn't line up, I may have cut out some of the parts of me stumbling around documentation. But in this case, what we're looking for in here is the API reference page so that we can go through and we want to find, number one, how exactly do we authenticate? So notice over here, we have our authentication. We need to pass an authorization header. Well, this is one of the headers that occurs in HTTP when a browser or your client communicates to another web service. You have some headers you need to specify. In our case, we know it's going to be JSON, so we have to specify the content type header. And we now also know that we need to specify the authorization header, which will include a bearer token of our OpenAI API key. That's hard to say fast. Wow. In this case, we can see that we have the API endpoint is api.openai.com/v1, and then everything else after that's going to be the endpoint itself that we're going to hit. So let's just see if we can get our request for models. It looks like if we pass our header and OpenAI organization, we should be getting a list of models that we have available to use. So I'm going to move this off to window, and let's come here and start specifying certain things. We know our base URL, right? That base URL is what we copied from the example. So I'm just going to specify OpenAI base URL equals, and that's going to be a string. Now that's a variable. I'm using $sign and the name of a variable, and that's, you can see it's coming back. What we want to do is we want to attach an existing, we want to attach a string to the rest of it. So if we literally just wrap that in a string and then finish that off with models, it should spit out models, and that is the web call that we want to make. So I'm building this out piecemeal so that you can kind of see the building blocks, how each one builds on the other. Now that I have the string that I want to call, now I'm just going to do an invoke REST method to that and call it. Now we immediately get an error like, hey, you didn't provide an API key, so you need to pass that in order for this to work, which we know that didn't happen. So what we want to do is we need to make sure we specify a header. Now headers are passed along as a hash table. It is a table of multiple key value pairs that exist, and then the key authorization will have a value of bearer token. The key content type will have a value of application JSON or whatever it is that we're doing. In this case with PowerShell, we don't need to specify the content type header. That's going to be included in the command that we send. So we'll get to that. But I'm just going to come back here and add headers. And now we need to build a hash table. So to build a hash table, let's do OpenAI headers is the variable. And we do a $sign curly brace. Sorry, @ curly brace, not a $sign. And then we start specifying our key equals value. So here we have authorization equals, and then we're going to have a string, which is going to be bearer, right? And then we need a space, and then our token. So I'm using a token that's already burned. By the time you see this video, it won't be valid anymore. You should know that in your case, when you're publishing code and you're doing anything with API keys and tokens and stuff like that, you want to make sure that you protect them. You do not share them out unless they're already burned and destroyed. Otherwise, people can steal it and act as if they are you. So now we have that header created, and there's our OpenAI base URL. And if we do OpenAI headers, we have our headers where we can see the name authorization. If I spell that correctly, which it looks like I did, is the value of beer and our token. So let's go back and rerun this command. And let's say headers, and here we'll do OpenAI headers. Oop, that's not headers. Headers, and then we'll do content type. And then for that, it'll just be application /JSON. And let's see what comes back. And we get back data. Now, I can't do anything with this data, right? Look, remember, everything that we're doing here is terminal. It's meant to be back, and it's not meant to be interactive. It's meant to be done in scripts. So we want to collect the results of whatever's happening here. So let's do this. We're going to save this to result equals, and then run this again. Now I'm going to clear my screen, and then we're going to look at the results. And boom, now we have our actual value that came back. So we have our list. The object is a list, and the data is where it actually is. So I can do dot notation to access the data, and there's a list of the value of the models. Now, this is a lot. I don't know really what I'm looking at. I don't know if I need the permissions. I don't know anything about this, except that I know I need the ID in order to actually query the OpenAI engine. So this is a list of models from the AI, from OpenAI, that I can use to do certain things to in my API interaction. So what I want to do is I'm going to grab results, and I'm going to select ID, or not ID. What was the, let's take a look. I need to figure out, I need to know what I'm looking at. So I'm going to limit my, I'm going to only pull the first result. Oh, well, that's why. And then it is ID. So I need result.data, and then I'm going to select ID. And here we have a list of IDs of engines and models that we can use. Now, we know we want to use GPT, right? So let's clear this again, and we're going to do result. Let's do this actually, because now we're doing this multiple times. When you start finding yourself walking into a pattern of repeating steps, you want to like take a step back and figure out how you can make that easier. In this case, we've just called result variable 3 or 4 times, and really they're just OpenAI models. So I'm going to save OpenAI models equals results.data. Okay, and now if I do OpenAI models, it just pulls that, right? It just gives me the list like we did. So now what I want to do is I want to pull the ones that are GPT related. So I'm going to do select, I'm going to pipe it through a filter where, and I'll do in correct PowerShell language, where -object, and I'm going to open a script block. $_ is going to reference each item as it passes through. It's going to iterate over the current item that passed through the last filter. And we're going to say .id like, so we're going to say anything that matches GPT in the string and give me that. Now there's 2 results that came back. All right, we don't have access to GPT-4. It's not available to my account. I'm not in the beta. We do have GPT-3-3.5-turbo and GPT-3.5-turbo-0301, which is a older model that's frozen in time. More information on OpenAI's website if you want to go look at it. In this case, we know our model is GPT 3.5 turbo. So now we can come back and say OpenAI model equals a string of GPT 3.5 turbo. Okay. So we're going to clear our screen. We have our OpenAI base and API URL. We've got our OpenAI headers. We've got our OpenAI model that we're going to use. And we also have models if we want to go iterate over and use a different model for whatever reason. Let's go back to our API documentation, and let's take a look at our completions. It looks like completions is a post request to the endpoint /completions. In this case, completions, I don't even know if ChatGPT model is available to be used with completions. But let's try it. Let's see what happens. There's no reason not to try it. So what completions is completions is the endpoint where the AI will complete the words that you're saying. So if I do a, let's go circle back up to our invoke rest method here, and let's change this out to say this is going to be completions. and we need to specify our body here. So we need to start creating our body. Now, the way the body works is it's going to be the same exact thing as the headers. It's going to be not exactly the same exact thing. The headers are it's a payload of key value pairs. The body is a JSON string of that. So it's not exactly the same, where a header is not converted to a JSON string. In the body, usually it's going to be either an array or a JSON object that is converted to a JSON string. So looking at our documentation, we can kind of see here the -d on the curl command is going to specify the data that has to be sent. That's the body we're looking for. So it looks like we need to specify a model, which we have, the prompt, and then we have max tokens, which is the number of tokens maximum that we want to spend on the reply, and then temperature, which is going to define the probability value and how deterministic the AI is in its response. It's not a creativity number. It's more about how far away from the probability will AI go in its response. There's two different ways to control it. One is temperature in a value between 0 and 2, I think. And then the other is top P. You can change either top underscore P, which defines the percentage of probability it should look for, or you can change the temperature, which is a number between 0 and 2, which is like 0.5, 0.1, 0.2, 0.8, 1.2, 1.5, up until 2, which will change how far away the AI goes from whatever you're doing. It could come back with creative responses, but in reality, it's just how random does it get. So I copied into my clipboard the full command that we were writing before. We just have to fill in the body. So let's remove that. I'm going to put it back on my clipboard, and we're going to start creating our OpenAI body. And that's going to be, again, a JSON object. And we have to specify here, it looks like, where was it? I lost it. We have to specify a model. Okay, so we're going to say model equals, and we do have an OpenAI model, right? And then in this case, because I'm not using an editor, I'm doing everything in the console just to build it out initially. I'm going to do a semicolon instead of enter. I could do new lines, but sometimes it gets wonky in terminal. So I'm just going to do a semicolon to denote a new line and specify the next value, which in this case is going to be prompt. And here I'm just going to do a regular string. Prompt equals once upon a time, right? Because it's doing text completion. So it's going to complete the rest of that text. And I have to make sure I use the same type of quotation mark when I do this. So prompt is once upon a time. After that, we need a max tokens, which will say 100. And then we need a temperature, if I can spell that correctly. Temperature equals, we'll do 1, let's say. And then that's basically all that we need, but we do need to convert this to JSON so that it's not a PowerShell object. So if we look at OpenAI body now, we will see it's a JSON string that we need to send along. So now let's paste and let's pass in our OpenAI body. And we want to make sure we get, again, a result equals, because we want to save whatever the result is and send it out. Now, it says cannot send a content body with this verb type. This is an error that happened, right? Which makes sense because I never specified a verb. When you're making an HTTP call, there are a couple different types of verbs that are, actions essentially that you can do with that HTTP call. So one of them is a get. The most default or the most common one that you use is a get, generally speaking. In the browser, you pull up a website, you're doing a get 90% of the time. When you're submitting a form and sending data back, you're doing a post. In this case, I'm including data back, and therefore I need to do a post. And in fact, the AI documentation, the OpenAI API documentation, included that the verb is going to be a post up here, right? So you can see that here, and you can probably also see it somewhere in here that it's a post, although I don't know where. I guess it's just implied in curl. So let's come back out here and just see what we have available. If I hit the up arrow key and there's a method that we can use. I don't think there's a verb. So let's see what method we can do here. Oh, we can see default, delete, get, head, merge, options, patch, post, put. Right, so these are all verbs, HTTP verbs that can be done with this call. So we need a post. So I'm just going to tab complete. And I was using tab to cycle through that. I was a tab completion. And let's go ahead and resend this command and see. This is a chat model and not supported in the V1 completions endpoint. So like I said, we don't really know if ChatGPT supports the completions endpoint. Well, now we do, right? How do we know? How do we figure something out if we're not sure? The best case scenario, the best way to do it, not best case scenario, is to just try it and see what happens. We tried it, we got an error message, now we know it doesn't work. If we wanted to see this work anyways, we can go back up to where we specified our body, and we can modify the OpenAI model here using just text. We'll just change it to text DaVinci 003, and then that should come back and give us a response. So now if we do results, we have a response. And notice we can say we have an ID, we have an object we got created, we have model, we have choices, and usage. Okay, so usage, we got prompt tokens was 5, completion tokens were 100. It used all our max tokens for the response. And we can just say results.choices will give us into the object choices, which seems to have a subject object of text. So we'll do that again and do .text. And now we have once upon a time, there was a young girl who lived in a faraway kingdom. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You guys can read it. It's on screen. But you can see how we used AI with API from PowerShell with some very basic code and how we figured it out with the building blocks. Now, we want to use ChatGPT like that. I'm stuck on that. We want to get a chatbot working. So how can we turn this into a chatbot? So let's go back to our AI documentation from OpenAPI, and we want to look for the chat completion. Well, it doesn't look like it's here. Chat, oh, right here. That was easy. So under chat, it looks like we have to go to /chat, and then we can go to completions. And it looks like our data changed a little bit. Now, instead of model and temperature and whatnot, we have model and we have messages, where messages is we define a role, user, and then the content of the message, okay? And the other thing to notice is that in this messages, you see the square brackets, that defines or denotes that the messages is an array of different objects that occur. So the curly braces are each is an object. That's a JSON object that contains a key value pair of role and content, where the value of role is user and the value of content is hello. And then the array denotes that you'll have multiple of these objects together. And if you think about it, that actually makes a lot of sense because we're talking about a chat. So there has to be constant messages going back and forth. We need the first message, the reply, the second message, the reply to that, and so on and so forth. That's how you create a chat with context. So what we want to do is we want to modify back to our ChatGPT model, and we want to see if we can complete or at least initiate a chat to see what's going on. So let's clear the screen, and we're going to go back to our body, where we set the body to be the model, right? So now I'm just using the up and down arrows to recreate the commands we already ran so we get this back to where it needs to be, okay? Now, in this case, we have the model, but our prompt is wrong because we actually don't need our prompt. And max tokens we can still use, and temperatures we can see those are optional parameters you can specify, and you can see a full list of those parameters if you want to, you know, on the OpenAI's API documentation. In this case, we need to create a new key called messages, like that, and then we need to say equals, and this needs to be an array. So in PowerShell, the array is an @ symbol and then open and close parentheses. And then in that array, we need to have an object, which is another @ symbol and this time curly brace. And in this object, we're going to have role equals, and then let's say role equals system, and then we're going to put a semicolon again, and then we're going to set the content to you are a okay. So that's one thing we're going to specify, and now we're going to come in here. We're going to set a semicolon, and we're going to create another object. And in this object, we're going to say a role equals user, okay, and then we're gonna do semicolon, and we're gonna say content equals read host. Okay, what is that? That's weird. We're gonna close that curly brace, we're gonna close this, and we're gonna go back and continue convert to JSON. Now I'm gonna press enter, and it's gonna give me a prompt. It's gonna want me to type something. Now I'm gonna save it. Now my OpenAI body, oops, that's not my body, will now be, look at that. I now have my temperature, I've got my messages. My messages has content, you are a friendly store manager tasked with taking care of customers. That role is the system. Then I have the user telling me, hello, my name is Mendy. And then I have the model I'm going to be using. I'm going to have my max tokens. Okay. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back up to my results equals invoke rest method. I'm going to change this endpoint to be chat/completions. And let's go ahead and see what happens if I press enter. And again, it's, well, that actually went pretty fast. So let's take a look at choices. And let's go from there into messages. Look at that. We have the role of an assistant that's telling me, hello, Mendy, how can I assist you today? Is there anything specific you're looking for? Okay, so I've now communicated with ChatGPT 3.5 using the beginnings of a chat, using the chat completions API endpoint. So let's talk about the role here for a second and what it is that I did. If you look in the documentation, you'll see that there are 3 different types of roles that you can use. The role of the author of the message is either system, user, or assistant. The way it works is that the AI responds better if it's given a role, or if it's given, I shouldn't use the word role, if it's given a purpose. And so there are like training text, essentially, or directives that we want to give the AI before the user talks to the AI. And that directive that we tell it is going to focus or change or direct the way the AI interacts with the actual user. So in this example we're talking about, the user is going to be the person who's actually sitting in front of the keyboard and sending messages to the AI. That's me, that's you, that's whoever's talking on ChatGPT's web interface, and so on and so forth. The other role that exists is the assistant role. That is the AI itself. So anytime the AI responds, it's going to have the role of assistant. And anytime we send to it, it's going to have the role of user. Now, the final role of system is going to be basically the program that we're using to communicate to the AI is going to be how the AI gets the lens the AI looks through, so to speak. It's going to be its training data and how and what identity it should take on and stuff like that. So what we want to do is we want to make sure whenever we send chat completion, not a completion, but a chat completion to OpenAI's API, we specify the role of user. Except initially, in the very beginning, the very first interaction we have, we should use system. Now, OpenAI has some documentation that states that system may be ignored by some of the models out there, and therefore may have unreliable results. And therefore, they suggest potentially putting the directive in the user role as well, or even skipping the system role completely. In our case, for example, however, we're just focusing on building this chat bot in PowerShell, and we'll use the role in the role system in a way that is, I think, kind of unique, but we'll find out. We'll see. You can let me know what you think. So in this case, we now have all the commands that we did in order to send a message, right? We know what has to happen. We have the messages array, and we have to put all the messages into that array and keep sending it back to the AI, saying, hey, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing. And as it answers, we need to feed that answer back to screen, collect more input, and send it back to the AI. So we've basically accomplished all of these things already, but we've done it in a way that's broken out and non-continuous. If anyone who knows PowerShell will know that how do you get something continuous? You just create a loop, right? So in this case, what I'm going to do is we're going to go to a brand new file here. And some of this I'm going to copy out. So I'm going to grab our API key, our headers, and let's just start with that. And then what we want to do is we're going to create a loop. So we want to say here, while input string not equals to quit. We're going to copy this entire loop in here. Actually, I'm just going to type it from scratch. Let's just do that. So a loop is very simple. So in this case, we can say while true, which means as long as the value is true, then how do we output this? So we're just going to specify 1. And you can see it's going to do 1 over and over and over again and so on. Now, what I was actually trying to do is I equals I plus plus, right? So we'll do I equals 1 here. Wow, I really am not doing so well here. And then what we should see is essentially we actually need it to output to screen so we can see it happening. We'll see it counting up, right? So it'll add and constantly loop, constantly adding I and constantly going up as long as that condition is true. Now, we know that we did read host and it asks for input. So we can say hello and it throws out hello. If we say that to a variable, let's say something like input string equals read host. And then when we specify hello, it doesn't output it back. Instead, it's actually inside the variable of input string, right? So that's how we can get read host. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say while input string is not equal to the word quit, and then continue, as long as that doesn't equal quit, then continue looping, right? So the loop is going to be essentially as follows. We're going to say first, we're going to specify input string, read host, and it's going to ask for a prompt. Ooh, I cannot use. And we're just going to say something like, here, we're going to do one more thing real quick. We're going to say name, username equals read host, prompt, wow. What is your name? Enter your name, okay? And then we'll say input string, and in this case, the prompt will be username, all right? So that's going to be me. It's going to ask for a prompt, pretending as if I'm the one who's going to be talking. And then it's going to say, let's do one other thing. Let's do bot name. Now, what we're going to do here is going to ask us to enter the name of the bot, okay? So at this point, if I just literally copy and paste this into PowerShell, it's going to say, what's my name? My name is Mendy. Okay, that's my name. Now enter the name of your bot. Name of the bot, let's just say is PoshBot. And the next thing it's going to do is it's going to ask for the input string. And notice how it reused my name, saying, Mendy, what is it that you say? Hello, my name is Mendy, right? And that's the input string I'm going to use. And now if I look at username, notice that it's saved. If I look at bot name, that's saved too. And if I look at input string, that's also saved. So my next thing I want to do is I want to create my loop and say, while input string is not equals to, and then we'll do quit, okay? And what we can do is we can say, let's make sure right now input string is, well, let's see if I can do, let's check something real quick. False. Okay. So it's PowerShell is not case sensitive, so we don't have to worry about normalizing the case and the variables. Bottom line is if we use the word quit, then it will quit. And we can even make this a little bit more friendly. We can say in, and then we can say or exit, or buy, or die, and so on and so forth, right? So much for being friendly. And now we can basically copy paste this, and we'll see it says, I have a period in there for some reason, and we can see that's false. Let me remove that period. And then we can say, well, if input string equals exit, and then now it comes back true. So now basically as you use any of these words, it'll die. And we'll say while input string is whatever, we're going to do a constant loop. our loop is basically going to be the same exact input string equals read host, like that. Okay, so this is going to be the start, and this is going to be the actual loop that occurs, and it's going to keep asking over and over and over again until it goes through. So what we're going to do here is, let's put this in here, and it's going to say, oh, what is it? Here's your loop. Oh, we want it to be not in. We want it to be not, right? Because we want it to be true, not false. So let's try this again. Boom. Now, no matter what I type, it's always going to ask for something, right? Hello, what is going on? So we now have a one-sided bot going on. We need the other side to come back so that we can actually build this conversation out. So no matter what I type, it's never going to stop unless I do exit, or I do something like, oh, well, input string now equals exit. So let's do something else. Now it asks for something, right? So if I do hello or whatever, I can do quit and it'll exit as well. So we can see our while loop is now working correctly the way we want it to. And we have our constant re-asking, hey, what's your string? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Now that we have the input string, we actually want to make the call out to OpenAI and pass the message along. So in this case, we have our API keys, we have our API headers. We should build out our objects that we need. So in this case, we need to specify, now that we have our input string, we need to specify our API body that we're going to be sending out. So let's do OpenAI body, and we should have this here, right? OpenAPI body. So let's just copy this. We're going to use the same variables here. And in this case, equals, and our OpenAI body is going to be a JSON object. And we're going to do, let's see if I can go back and find it. It was here. I do a lot. Here it is. We did a lot here. I'm just going to copy and paste this entire thing. So let's control exit, and let's just control V that in. Now let's clean this up a bit. So we're going to put that, do our tab here, press enter here, model equals OpenAI model. After each semicolon, I'm going to put a new line break. And here, I'm going to do a line break, and it's going to indent it. And I'm going to do another line break here and indent it again, because the way it works is that it's nested objects. So we have a nested object within a nested array within a nested object. And so when that's finished, we're going to close off this object, and then we're going to close off close off this object, and this is going to be back indented. And then we have our content. Now we're going to clean it. We're going to remove some of this stuff because it was just a test. Now this is going to clear that up. And then we've got max tokens equals 100. And then we've got our temperature equals 1. And now we're going to finally close this object, and we're going to convert to JSON the whole thing. Okay. So that is how it looks when it's on indented and so on and so forth. In this case, what we want to do is we want to remove this content read host, and we're actually going to specify the content of input string, right? So we're going to set the input string, and we're going to pass it in. Now, in this case, we're going to remove this role system, you are friendly, whatever, because that's not really important here. What we want is we want to specify this role. And at the same time, I'm going to remove messages from being an array, because what we want to do is we want to classify messages as an array up top very early. So we're going to say up here messages, and we can say chat messages equals, and we're going to say it's an empty array. So @ symbol, open close parentheses, going to indicate an open empty array. And then what we'll do is we will add to it. So we'll say messages equals messages plus, and then we'll include this object inside of it. Now, up here, actually, this is chat messages, right? Yeah. And then in here, what we'll end up doing is, I think I cut it really. So let's just do enter here and paste. Now we have our object, which specifies the system message. we can clean up some of this indentation because it is a lot for no reason, because we're no longer that deep nested. And here we've got our chat messages is going to be an array that indicates system message saying you're a friendly store manager tasked with taking care of customers. Okay. And then in here, it's going to be messages equals chat messages plus the message we're doing as a user. And then we can clear this out. We actually don't need that anymore. And then max tokens equals, I actually don't know if this is going to work because of the line indentations. So let's put this back onto a single line for right now. We can always go back and test it to see how we want it to work. And for those who don't know, I'm using control to quickly remove empty space up until the next character that exists. So control delete, control backspace, control arrows will jump around as shortcuts as you go through this. In this case, we're going to put this all in one line. Chat messages plus the existing object that we're creating. It's going to be put into chat messages, and then it'll just keep getting saved. And then we have max tokens equals 1,000, and we're going to convert that entire thing to JSON, and then we're going to move on. So after the OpenAI body is built, we have our headers, we have our body, we need our actual web request, right? I'm trying to think of what else we need here. So for our web request, we're going to do AI web request equals invoke REST method. And here we need our URL, which is going to be, let's go see if I can grab it from here somewhere. Oh, we have our base URL. Did we include that? Here, what is that? We did not even set that up. So let's do this, right? So this is gonna help us. This is the reason why we use variables. We're gonna copy this and say our OpenAI base URL. Oops, it's the wrong thing. Hide that. Yeah, I did URL equals, and then it'll be a string of that. And now we know in here it's going to be URL of OpenAI base URL. I guess the file's not trusted because it's not saved, so therefore tab completion is not working properly within VS Code. And we're going to chat completions as the URL. We know our method is going to be post, actually, not get. And we know is that our headers is going to be headers in this case. And we know that our content type, right, is going to be application JSON. And that's a string technically. So let's just surround it in strings. Sometimes it's not required. Sometimes PowerShell will determine that for you automatically and fix it and make it work. But ideally, we will surround that in strings and that will work. Now we just have to pass in our body. So we're going to say our body is going to be our OpenAI body. Ta-da! Yeah, so that's good. Chat completions. Yeah, web request. Now everything that happens is going to pull it in. Now that doesn't really help us. We still don't see it on the screen, right? So what we want to do is we want to actually collect the response, and then we want to provide the response back onto screen. We want to add one more thing in here. We're going to say n equals 1, so that way it only comes back with one response to our message. And then we want to actually collect that response. So reply equals AI web request dot choices or something, right? Let's see if we do results dot choices. Yep. And then dot message. And then we've got our role and content. So if I do dot role, that's assistant. If I do dot content, it comes back to the content. So what we want to do is we want to grab dot choices dot message, and we're going to say the following: AI role equals, and we're just going to copy and paste this into that choices dot message dot role, and then we're going to copy and paste this entire thing into dot content like that. Okay, so we're going to say AI reply. Now we want this to go back out to things. So we're going to do write host. Okay, and the write host is going to basically say, number one is we want to specify the bot name. And then we want to specify the AI reply. And we want to indicate that it's a different color. So we know it's not the same thing. So we'll do cyan in this case, but you can do whatever color you want. And then finally, we want to append the new role and message and reply back into the messages so that it loops. We have to create that full circle again. So up here, we have where we're adding chat messages, our new message as a user, right? And then what we want to do is we want to add the reply back into the messages before the loop happens again. So now what we'll do is chat messages equals chat messages. Okay. Plus, and then we'll add here role equals AI role, and then content equals AI reply. Okay. And that should literally be all that we need in order to run this. Now, I'm not going to copy paste this into the terminal. I'm actually going to save this into a file. In my documents. All right, so now start demo chatbot, and we can see how this works. So let's come here, let's do start demo chatbot, and let's run it. And we have a error. Of course, you can't use a colon after a variable. It's a special character. For right now, I'm going to just put a space after it, and that should fix it. But really, there's a cleaner looking way how to do that. So now it's going to ask me for my name. My name is Mendy. Enter the name of the bot. Let's do PoshBot, and it's going to say, Mendy, what do you want me to say? Hello, my name is Mendy. Enter. And it's still looping through. It's not actually making that request. So while input string not in, it got me my name. Now it's saying, right, that makes sense because it asks me for my bot name, then it asks me for my thing, and now it's looping through where the first thing it does is ask me for my thing. So I need to actually move this out to the very last thing that happens, right? So our order of operations is a little bit off. Here, when you're talking to somebody, you don't just start talking and rattle off a bunch of sentences. In reality, you talk, you wait for them to respond, and then you talk again. And what I did here is actually ask double. So if I can just do this again. And it doesn't know what URL is in the invoke rest method. What did I do there? Is it not invoke the rest method URL? Now I'm confused. No, it's URI, not URL. Okay. Well, we don't get a chance to see it because I messed it up. So let's clear that. Let's do this again and see. My name is Mendy. Chatbot's name is PoshBot. And hello, my name is Mendy. And if I'm right, there we go. Now it's waiting. It's going to come back and say, PoshBot says, hi, Mendy. It's great to meet you. How can I assist you today? I'm going to say, I'm just looking to show off a ChatGPT clone in PowerShell. I think you can help me. Absolutely, I'm happy to help. What exactly would you like to do? It's a ChatGPT clone in PowerShell. You're already doing it. And notice I can send symbols and whatnot, and it's just all encapsulated. Oh, I see. Well, in that case, let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything I can help you with. What's my name? And I'm just going to show that it does have context. Your name is Mendy. Do you know what you're called? And it's not going to have any idea because we're not actually sending that back to it. And it's going to be like, nope, I'm just an AI language model. So that's an example of how we can get a working chatbot in PowerShell. Literally, you can see exactly like it's interacting. It's pretty quick. It's using ChatGPT 3.5, using chat completion's AI endpoint. So that actually went a lot longer than I thought it would. But I was hoping to cover some more things. Let's just see. Let's go a little bit longer. And if you guys want to stop the video at this point, by all means, go ahead and stop the video. but I'm going to keep going, and I want to show off one other thing about this that we can do. Okay, so one of the things about programming that happens is the ability to create functions. If you have a function, you can call it a repeated number of times without having to repeat the code in this case. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say we do something a little bit different. We now have a chat message. We have a username, and we've got a bot name and an input string. What if I move this chat message down underneath the bot name, right? And what if I say here, I'm providing a bot name. I want the AI to write the instruction set that happens, right? So imagine, for example, I change this to be that. And then I reset this and I rerun my chatbot. My name is Mendy. The bot name, I'm going to do SnarkBot in this case, okay? And then I'm going to say, hello, I've arrived. And now I have SnarkBot telling me, oh, congratulations, you must be so proud of yourself for managing to get here. Shall we start the show? Clap now or later? Slow clap. Should we start the slow clap now or later? I can't read apparently. You can clearly see how my instruction has changed from, your store manager be helpful to be as snarky as possible, and it clearly comes back as snarky. Wouldn't it be cool if I can take a name of a bot, call it SnarkBot, and have it decide how it should behave based solely on the name that I give it? That would be pretty neat, huh? So what I want to do is I want to take this and say, I want another AI command to run. And the AI command to run is going to be a message that says something along the lines of, let's just do instruction. I'm going to use a here string here because it's going to get a little complicated, or at least not complicated, but long. So I'm going to say, you are required to build a prompt for ChatGPT to follow that will instruct it to behave in a context that makes sense for the name it's been given. Now, for example, if you follow like anything AI, what they recommend, they always say you want to specify examples, you want to be specific, you want to show what you want. So we're going to say, for example, if the name is SnarkBot, you want to instruct the AI to be, you want the instruction prompt specify that the AI should be as snarky as possible. If the name contains the word writer, let's say the name indicates, right, that the bot should be a writer, then the prompt should tell it to be as eloquent and long, and how about say storytelling as possible in its replies. Okay, so now we're doing something I have no idea, like this prompt I'm building off the cuff. I have no idea how it's actually going to work. Yeah, right? But the thing is that because we have access to ChatGPT, or even using our PowerShell, chatbot, we can actually provide the prompt to them and see how it will behave. In this case, for ease of use, I'm just going to take ChatGPT here, and I'm going to say, let me get this smaller so that we can see the actual area. And we're just going to grab this prompt and paste it in and see how it behaves. And now I'm going to say the name, SnarkBot. All right, so it's not exactly what we want. I kind of just want it to reply just the prompt. So we're going to say, for example, the name blah, blah, and then we can say something like name SnarkBot, reply. We'll say like this, because we know that in this case the roles exist. We'll say role user, name SnarkBot, then role assistant, which is we know the AI, and then here, let's say instead of name, we'll say content, and then content. Let's see if I can grab what it wanted here. Ooh. Let's just cut all this out for right now. And I will, let's paste it back in here for a minute. And now we're going to grab this and paste it in as the content. And Control C, and then let's clear this chat, brand new chat, and then let's paste this again. All right, so now that gives me the thing. Now the only other thing we need to do is we actually need to include the name itself that we want. So we're going to come here and we're going to say name is going to be, let's give it a different name. Let's say, I don't know, Harry Potter. I'm a huge fan of Harry Potter. So let's say Harry Potter fanfic writer. And there you go. There's our content. All right. If we come back and change it to say name, because we don't need to recreate our context every time. Let's just say our name in this case is AI Super Tech, right? Boom. So what we're going to do is we're going to use AI to build our initial instruction based off the name that we provide. So we'll have a dynamic bot that will actually behave however we want it to, is what the goal I'm trying to do here. So it gives us basically what we want. We do want to kind of not have the role user content AI super tech, but we can deal with that if that's how it's going to reply. Because it is PowerShell, we can do whatever the heck we want to the responses before we actually handle it. So really, it's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the top lines here, and we're going to say that's the example, and now we're going to say name, and now we're going to specify in here the bot name. Okay. I wonder if we can just, I'm going to copy this one more time in ChatGPT and see if we can rebuild this to be more explicit. And I'm going to remove all this to say name snarkbot, and then we're going to remove this and say reply. And see how it comes back. And now we're going to specify name to be AI Super Tech again. There we go. And here you can see prompt your AI Super Tech. And then if I just do name, snarky, snark. There we go. So now it's responding exactly the way I want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the prompt that I have here. I don't need this. I'm just going to have an example of a name that I pass, and I don't need the role assistant. I'm just going to send this to be reply. And then we're going to pass the name itself, and then we should just get back the prompt in this case. Okay. Now, what we want to do is we want to basically call the AI again in advance. We want to call the AI again. So we want to do this entire thing and all this again in order for it to pass in or come back with an instruction set that we then pass into messages and then go from there. Well, in reality, we can do something called functioning, right? I started talking about that in the beginning. So let's build a function here that says, right after we do all this stuff, let's just do function, and we'll say invoke AI web request. Okay, I think I have that as a variable, which is fine. We'll do function invoke AI web request, and then we'll open up our function block, and here we'll do param block and the parameters that we're going to allow. And I'm going to do this very sloppy in terms of PowerShell like standards or what they want you to do normally. But in any case, it should give you exactly like enough information for you to play yourself, and then you can learn the correct way of doing it over time. It does work. It just doesn't follow this standard. Like I'm not doing the function block and specifying that it's a string or anything like that. So I'm just going to do, we want to have our body, and we want to have, that's really it. Everything that happens is going to be in the body itself, I think. And we can function it out more. We can break the body out and put most of the body inside of the function, because we know, actually, let's do that. Let's do messages. This is going to be an array, and we'll do this as messages. And then what we'll do is we'll build our body out here. So we'll say OpenAI body is going to be block, and we're going to copy everything that happens here to here, like that. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to remove this and say this is messages. Just copy it from here. All right. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to create this object that's only going to exist inside of this function. And then we want to make a call out to this AI web request. And we're going to control X or control C that for right now. I'll control X it. We don't need it there right now anymore. And we'll paste it in here. So now we have this AI web request that's going to happen, and it's going to invoke REST method. It's going to pass in the body from OpenAI body. We are getting off screen here. Let's see if I can move this over. Yeah, so OpenAI body is right here. So then we have that happening inside of the function. And in reality, we want to just return. Let's just make this easy. We're just going to return AI web request. Okay. So that is the function that's going to get called. And the only thing that has to happen now is we have to pass in the messages themselves. So in this case, chat messages is role system here. Our instruction is over here, right? So this is a here string, which means that everything from here to here is included in the instruction variable. And what we want to do is say, we want to build the message. So let's do this. Let's say instruction, AI instruction equals invoke AI. I'm going to copy and paste because, again, it's not properly completing it with tab completion, and I don't want to make a mistake. So invoke AI web request, and then here we can do messages. And then here it'll be, remember, messages requires a role and a content. So we're going to do it, it's an object, and role equals, in this case, role equals user, right? Because we want to be as exact. We want it to actually follow what we ask it to do. And then content equals, and then instruction, like that. And then what we can come back with is say AI instruction dot choices. So here our content is going to be AI instruction dot choices dot where are you? Messages dot message, choices dot message dot content, right? And that'll be the instruction that comes back. And what we can do is we can actually do write host. We want to make sure it's actually going to come back correctly. So we can write this out to the host so we can see it. And we can do foreground as yellow so that we can differentiate it from what actually is going to be part of the conversation itself. So now we can write host. You can see how ChatGPT responded based off the name that we provide. And then we can use that prompt that comes back in the actual instruction set here, and then we can start our conversation. So now we have chat messages that are here. We have our OpenAI body. We don't need any of this stuff. We do need this. Okay, so we're going to cut that out and paste it outside, and we're going to delete everything inside of here. So now we're going to say $ messages equals chat messages plus role user, AI role equals web request, choices, AI reply. That's going to be the same thing. Now what we do need to do is we need to call that web request out before we can actually do anything again. So we're going to do AI web request again equals invoke AI web request like that, and then messages, and then messages. So that'll be, it's going to pass it through. And then every time it resyncs to the beginning, it'll reset this to our chat messages, and this will keep adding to it. So we should have basically recreated what we wanted, and we basically just functioned out the request to the AI. And there are different ways that you can do that. So like there's a couple of things here that we're doing on repeat, like we're rebuilding out the role and the instruction and so on and so forth. So you could really function all that out and parameterize it out so that you don't have to redo all this code so many times. Let's save it and see how badly we messed this up. Because troubleshooting is where we learn. That's the best part. Like you don't really learn anything by doing things successfully. It's by doing it wrong is when you start to actually learn your way through things. So let's start our demo chatbot, and notice we immediately have an error saying unexpected token, and that is on line 25, character 1. Let's go to line 25, and sure enough, we have an unexpected token here. It looks like OpenAI body is closing that, and this closes the function. So let's remove this, and let's clear that up, and let's save that. And if you notice how I did that, so like the cursor will highlight. If I click here, it'll highlight the open bracket in response. So I'm here, now it's highlighting this one. So that's how I knew it was wrong. So let's come back here, let's clear this up and do this again. And now it's asking for my name, Mendy. Let's call this AI super tech, right? AI super tech. And let's press enter. And now it's saying you're required to build a prompt for ChatGPT to follow that will instruct it to behave. And it has an error saying invalid operation. Doesn't tell me why. Invalid request. Rule user is not a type of array. I forgot to make it an array. So that's problematic. So let's go back to here. Messages needs to be an array. So that means I need to, down here, if you notice, it's just an object. I didn't actually pass an array. So I'm going to open another add symbol. I'm going to do curly, not a curly brace, but a parenthesis around it. And let's do this again. Ooh, let's clear and let's restart. Mendy, and the name of the bot is going to be AI Super Tech. And now let's see what we can come back with. You are AI Super Tech, a knowledgeable and tech-savvy AI. Your goal is to provide accurate information in response to any technological questions or comments. Be concise to the point while also showing off your expertise in the field. Okay, so what can I do if my computer is beeping? If your computer is beeping, it could indicate a hardware problem. The number of pattern of beeps can help determine an issue. So this isn't really like helpful because you can't really showcase the different attitude that happens here. Because really ChatGPT will be helpful technology-wise. Like it's hard to gauge whether it's really being helpful or not. So let's see if we can be a little bit more creative here. And notice it did get cut off. It is because of the max tokens I'm specifying. I'm only allowing 100 tokens per response. So that is normal. Let's do Mendy and let's try Snarkbot and see what happens. Welcome, Snarkbot. Your prompt is to be the most sarcastic and ironic chatbot ever. Whether someone is looking for help, asking for advice, or simply trying to make small talk, your response should be dripping with snark and sharp humor. Nothing is off limits when it comes to making quips and making fun. And you can see how just by changing the name of the bot, the attitude changes here, which is really what I was going for in this demo chatbot that we created. So we created a chatbot. If there's a specific personality you want to try, by all means, let me know. I'm happy to expand on this if you want me to. I will post this code minus the API key on my GitHub. There will be a link to my GitHub in this YouTube in the description so you can play with it yourself. But I would really encourage you to build it yourself and do it your own way. You know, again, the point of this video is not to get to the chatbot. The point of the video was to learn the process of how we literally figured out what it is. Like, we had a goal, what we wanted to do, and we used PowerShell building blocks, read host, you know, setting variables. Like, we did these commands one at a time in the console before we actually then put it together in a script and wrapped it in a loop, which is really what all automation is all about. And it will stretch your critical thinking abilities to try to work this out. So I would highly encourage you to do that. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope it was fun, and I hope you stayed till the end. Have a great day.